The hospice nurse found the cassette recorder on my nightstand this morning. She asked if I wanted her to play some music. I told her no. I told her to leave it exactly where it was. She doesn't know what's on these tapes. Nobody does. Nobody living, anyway. My name is Malcolm Hendry. I'm 73 years old, and according to Dr. Pemberton, I have maybe 2 weeks left. Pancreatic cancer. It's eating through me like acid through paper. The morphine helps with the pain, but it doesn't help with the other thing, the weight I've been carrying since 1967. I'm recording this because I made a promise 56 years ago, and I've kept it. God help me, I've kept it through everything. Through my marriage to Catherine. Through the birth of my daughter. Through my son's funeral. Through Catherine's slow descent into dementia and her death 3 years ago. Through all of it, I kept my mouth shut. But Thomas is dead now. Has been since 1989. And the promise I made was to him, not to the thing in the water. Not to the bastards in London who paid us to keep quiet. Not to the tourists who flock to Loch Ness every summer, hoping for a glimpse of something that will make their meaningless lives feel special for 5 minutes. I promised Thomas. And Thomas is gone. So I'm breaking my silence. Not because I want forgiveness, I'm well past that. Not because I think anyone will believe me. But because the truth has been rotting inside me for more than half a century, and I'll be damned if I take it to whatever comes next without spitting it out first. If you're listening to this, whoever you are, I need you to do something for me. I need you to share this story. Subscribe to this channel, leave a comment, hit that like button, do whatever it is people do now to make sure something doesn't disappear into the void. Because this needs to be heard. Not for my sake. For his. Thomas deserves that much. Let me start at the beginning. April 1967. I was 17 years old, skinny as a fence post, and desperate to get out of Inverness. My father worked at the aluminum smelter. My mother cleaned rooms at the station hotel. They had 4 kids and not enough of anything, not enough money, not enough space, not enough hope. I'd applied to university in Edinburgh. Got rejected. Applied again. Rejected again. By spring of '67, I'd given up on escape and started looking for work that would at least get me out of the house. That's when I met Thomas Carrick. He was 32, though he looked older. Weathered. He had the kind of face that made you think of sailors and hard winters, all angles and squint lines, with pale blue eyes that looked like they'd seen the bottom of something deep. He wore the same brown canvas jacket every day, patched at the elbows, and he smelled like cigarette smoke and peat. Thomas ran a small boat tour company out of Fort Augustus. Loch Ness Expeditions, he called it, though it was just him and one boat, a 16-foot fishing vessel with an outboard motor that coughed like a dying man every time you tried to start it. He needed help for the summer season. Somebody to handle the ropes, serve the tourists their tea, and keep the deck clean. The pay was shit, but it came with room and board in a caravan parked behind his cottage, and it meant I wouldn't have to watch my father drink himself into a rage every night. So I took it. I moved to Fort Augustus on a grey Tuesday in late April. The caravan smelled like mildew and old socks, but it had a bed and a paraffin heater, and it was mine. That first night, Thomas knocked on the door and handed me a bottle of whiskey. "Welcome aboard, lad," he said. "We start at dawn." I didn't know it then, but that bottle of whiskey was the beginning of everything. Thomas wasn't just hiring help. He was looking for someone he could trust. Someone young enough to be mold. Someone desperate enough not to ask questions. He was looking for me. Thomas had 3 rules, and he made them very clear on my first day. Rule 1, never go out on the water alone. Rule 2, if you see something unusual, you tell me first. Not the tourists. Not your mates down at the pub. Me. Rule 3, if I tell you to shut your mouth, you shut your mouth. I didn't think much of it at the time. I figured Thomas was just one of those old-school types who wanted things done his way. The kind of man who'd spent so much time alone that he'd forgotten how to deal with other people. But looking back now, I can see it. The rules weren't about control. They were about protection. His, and eventually, mine. If you're still with me, I need you to keep listening. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. This story gets darker, and I need to know someone out there is hearing it. Share it with people who care about the truth, not the sanitized version they sell in the gift shops, but the real thing. The thing that cost me everything. The first few weeks were uneventful. We'd take tourists out twice a day, a morning and afternoon runs. They'd sit on the benches with their cameras and their thermoses of tea, scanning the water like they were waiting for the second coming. Thomas would tell them the stories they wanted to hear. The sightings. The sonar readings. The blurry photographs. He was good at it. He had this way of talking that made even the most ridiculous story sound plausible. He'd point to a ripple on the water and say, "See that? That's not wind. Wind doesn't move like that." And they'd all lean forward, desperate to believe. But here's the thing, Thomas never believed the stories he told. I could see it in his eyes. He was performing. Going through the motions. And when we'd dock at the end of the day and the tourists would shuffle off, clutching their souvenirs and their disappointment, Thomas would light a cigarette and stare out at the water with an expression I couldn't read. It wasn't until mid-June that I understood why. It was a Thursday. I remember because Thursdays were always slow, most tourists came on weekends. We only had 5 passengers that afternoon, an older couple from Manchester, a middle-aged American woman with her expensive camera, and 2 German men who spoke almost no English. We were about halfway up the loch, near Urquhart Bay, when the engine cut out. Just died. No sputter, no warning. 1 second it was running fine, and the next it was silent. Thomas swore under his breath and moved to the stern. I followed. He pulled the starter cord once, twice, 3 times. Nothing. The tourists started murmuring. The American woman asked if we were okay. Thomas waved her off with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Just a temperamental old girl," he said. "Give me a minute." But he wasn't looking at the engine. He was looking at the water. I followed his gaze. At first, I didn't see anything. Just the dark, rippling surface of the loch, reflecting the grey sky. Then I saw it, a disturbance about 30 yards off the port side. Not waves. Not wind. Something else. The water was bulging. It's hard to describe if you weren't there. It wasn't like something was surfacing. It was like the water itself was being pushed up from below, like a hand pressing against the underside of a sheet. The bulge moved slowly, deliberately, parallel to the boat. I opened my mouth to say something, but Thomas's hand clamped down on my shoulder. Hard. His fingers dug into the muscle like a vice. Not a word, he hissed. Not a fucking word. I nodded. My heart was hammering in my chest. The tourists hadn't noticed yet. They were too busy complaining about the delay, fiddling with their cameras, oblivious. The bulge moved past us, slow and smooth, and then it was gone. The water settled. Thomas pulled the starter cord again, and this time, the engine roared to life. We finished the tour. Thomas cracked jokes, pointed out landmarks, played his part perfectly. But his knuckles were white on the tiller, and he didn't look at the water again. When we docked and the tourists had left, I turned to him. I was going to ask what the hell we'd just seen. But before I could open my mouth, Thomas grabbed me by the front of my shirt and pulled me close. "You saw nothing," he said. His breath smelled like tobacco and fear. "Do you understand me?" "Nothing." I nodded. "Good lad." He let go of my shirt and walked away. That night, I lay in my caravan, staring at the ceiling, and I knew that everything was about to change. 3 days later, a man came to see Thomas. I was cleaning the boat when a black car pulled up to the dock, a Rover, sleek and expensive, completely out of place in Fort Augustus. A man stepped out. Mid-40s, wearing a grey suit and polished shoes that clicked against the wooden planks. He had the kind of face that looked like it had never smiled in its life. Thomas was in the cottage. I watched through the window as the man knocked, waited, and then was let inside. The door closed. I should have gone back to work. I should have minded my own business. But I was 17 and stupid, and I wanted to know what the hell was going on. I crept around to the side of the cottage. The window was cracked open. I could hear voices. "You were supposed to report it, Thomas. Not ignore it." The man's voice was clipped, Southern English, dripping with irritation. I didn't ignore it. I handled it. Thomas sounded tired. "And the boy? Does he know?" A pause. "He saw something. I told him to keep his mouth shut." "Is he reliable?" Another pause. "Longer this time." "He will be." The man sighed. "You're playing a dangerous game. If this gets out, if anything gets out, it's not just your livelihood on the line. Do you understand?" "I understand." "Good. Keep it that way." "And Thomas?" The man's voice dropped. "If the boy becomes a problem, you deal with it. We can't afford loose ends." I didn't wait to hear the rest. I crept back to the boat, my hand shaking, and pretended I'd been working the whole time. The man left 10 minutes later. Thomas came out after him, lit a cigarette, and stood on the dock, staring at the water. I wanted to ask him who the man was, what they'd been talking about, what the hell was going on. But I didn't, because Rule 3 was still in effect. And somewhere deep down, I was starting to realize that the thing in the water, the thing we'd seen 3 days ago, wasn't just a story. It was real. And people in London knew about it. Thomas didn't speak to me for 2 days after the man in the sloop left. We went through the motions, took tourists out, collected their money, docked at sunset, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. It was like I'd become a problem he hadn't figured out how to solve yet. On the third day, he knocked on my caravan door at 3 in the morning. I stumbled out of bed, disoriented. Thomas was standing in the darkness with a thermos and 2 mugs. "Get dressed," he said. "We're going out." "Out where?" "The water." I almost said no. Almost told him to piss off, that I wasn't going anywhere at 3 in the morning. But something in his voice stopped me. It wasn't a request. It was a test. I got dressed. We walked down to the dock in silence. The loch was black and still, reflecting nothing. Thomas untied the boat and gestured for me to get in. I did. He started the engine, it coughed to life on the first pull, which never happened, and we headed out into the darkness. We didn't bring lights. Thomas navigated by memory, steering us north toward the deeper sections of the loch. The only sound was the engine and the water lapping against the hull. After 20 minutes, he cut the motor. We drifted. Thomas poured 2 mugs of tea from the thermos. He handed me one. I could smell whiskey in it. "You want to know what's going on?" he said. It wasn't a question. Yes. He lit a cigarette. The match flare illuminated his face for a second, hollow cheeks, exhausted eyes. "Then I'll tell you. But once I do, you're in it. There's no backing out. No running to the papers. No telling your mates down at the pub. You understand?" I nodded. Thomas took a long drag and exhaled slowly. "There's something in this loch, Malcolm. And it's not what the tourists think it is." He told me everything. And I mean everything. The creature, because that's what it was, not a myth, not a hoax, but a living thing, had been in Loch Ness for longer than anyone could say. Maybe centuries. Maybe longer. The locals had known about it for generations, but they'd kept it quiet. Protected it. Not out of fear, but out of respect. "It's not a monster," Thomas said. "That's what people don't understand. It's not some prehistoric leftover that got trapped when the ice melted. It's older than that. Smarter than that." He'd first seen it in 1952, when he was 17, the same age I was now. He'd been out fishing with his father when the water started moving in that same impossible way I'd seen. His father had grabbed him, held him down in the boat, and told him to close his eyes. "Don't look at it," his father had said. "Don't try to understand it. Just let it pass." But Thomas had looked. And the thing had looked back. "I can't describe what that was like," he said, staring into his mug. "It wasn't like meeting an animal. It was like being seen. Really seen. Down to the bone." After that, his father had brought him into the fold. Told him about the others, a loose network of locals who'd been watching over the creature for generations. Fishermen. Farmers. Shopkeepers. People who understood that some things were bigger than tourism, bigger than money, bigger than curiosity. Their job was simple: keep the creature safe. Keep people away from the deep water. And most importantly, keep the government from finding out. "But they did find out," I said. Thomas nodded. 1963, some bastard scientist from London came up here with sonar equipment. Picked up something he wasn't supposed to. Started asking questions. Showed his data to the wrong people. The government had sent investigators. Quiet ones. The kind who didn't wear uniforms or ask permission. They'd found the creature, confirmed its existence, and then they'd made a decision. If you've made it this far, you need to keep going. Hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because what comes next, what Thomas told me that night on the water, is the part they've been trying to bury for 60 years. And I'll be damned if I let them succeed. They wanted to capture it, Thomas said. Study it. Maybe weaponize it, for all I know. But they couldn't. Every time they tried to get close, every time they sent divers down or dropped nets, the creature would disappear. Just vanish into the deep water like it was never there. So they'd changed tactics. Instead of trying to capture it, they decided to control the narrative. They paid off the locals who knew about it, threatened the ones who wouldn't take money, and they turned Loch Ness into a circus. Think about it, Thomas said. All those sightings in the 60s? The photographs? The tourist boom? None of that was accidental. They wanted people looking for a monster. Because as long as everyone's focused on grainy photos and fake evidence, nobody's looking for the real thing. And you went along with it. He looked at me then. Really looked at me. I didn't have a choice, lad. They made that very clear. Either I play tour guide and keep my mouth shut, or I have an accident. And accidents happen all the time on the water. I felt sick. Not from the whiskey. From the realization that everything I'd thought I knew about this place, about Thomas, about the tourists, about the whole damn circus, was a lie. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because you saw it, he said. And once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. You're in this now whether you want to be or not. So you've got two choices. You can walk away, leave Fort Augustus, go back to Inverness, forget this summer ever happened. Or you can stay. Help me protect it. Protect it from what? From them. From the tourists. From the whole goddamn world. He stubbed out his cigarette and started the engine. We rowed back to shore in silence. And when we docked, I didn't go back to the caravan. I stood on the dock, staring out at the black water, and I made my choice. I stayed. I'm not going to lie to you. The years that followed were hard. I became Thomas's partner in every sense of the word. We ran the tours together, smiled for the cameras, told the stories. And when the tourists left, we watched the water, kept the creature safe. It wasn't always there. Sometimes weeks would go by without a sign. But then we'd see it, the way the water moved, the shadow beneath the surface, that impossible presence, and we'd know it was still there. Still alive. The man in the suit came back twice more over the years. Each time, he'd remind Thomas of the rules. Keep quiet. Keep it buried. Keep the circus running. And we did. I met Catherine in 1970. Married her in 72. She asked me once what I did all day on the water, if I ever got bored. I told her I liked the peace and quiet. She believed me. Our daughter was born in 1974. Our son in 1977. Thomas was the godfather to both of them. He'd come to Sunday dinners, play with the kids, drink whiskey with me in the garden. He never married. Never had children of his own. This is my family, he'd say, gesturing at the loch. Always has been. In 1982, a documentary crew came to Fort Augustus. They wanted to film a special about Loch Ness, interview the locals, maybe capture something on camera. Thomas and I were both interviewed. We told them what they wanted to hear. Smiled for the cameras. Played our parts. The documentary aired in 1983. It was complete rubbish. Exactly what the government wanted. By the late 80s, tourism was booming. The gift shops were making a fortune. The hotels were always full. And the creature was still safe, hidden in the deep water, protected by people like Thomas and me. But in 1989, everything changed. Thomas had a stroke in March of 1989. A bad one. He was in hospital for 3 weeks, and when he came out, half his face didn't work right anymore. He could barely walk. Could barely speak. I took over the boat tours. Hired a local lad to help with the ropes. And every evening, I'd go to Thomas's cottage and sit with him, tell him about the day, about the tourists, about the water. He'd nod. Try to form words. Mostly he'd just listen. In August, he had another stroke. This one killed him. I was there when it happened. Sitting by his bed, holding his hand. His eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. And then, in that final moment, he turned his head and looked at me. His lips moved. I leaned in close. "Promise me," he whispered. "Promise me you'll keep it safe." "I promise," I said. He squeezed my hand. And then he was gone. I kept my promise. For 30 more years, I kept it. But here's the thing nobody tells you about promises: they're heavy. They get heavier every year. Every lie you tell, every secret you keep, every time you smile and play your part, it all adds up. It builds inside you like sediment at the bottom of a loch. You're still here. That means something. Hit that like button. Share this recording. Because the end is coming, and you need to hear what happened. You need to know what I did. I sold the boat in 1995. Retired. Spent more time with Catherine, tried to be present for my daughter. My son had died in '91, car accident, and Catherine never really recovered. By 2015, her dementia was so bad she didn't recognize me anymore. She died in 2022. And I was alone. The government man, or his replacement, I never knew which, stopped coming. Maybe they'd forgotten about us. Maybe they thought we were too old to matter. Or maybe they'd found a new way to keep the secret buried. But I never forgot. I never stopped watching the water. And sometimes, on quiet evenings, I'd go down to the shore and sit there, and I'd feel it. That presence. That ancient, impossible thing that Thomas had given his life to protect. I kept my promise to him. But now he's gone. And I'm going. And the promise dies with me. Unless I break it first. Here's what I need you to understand. The creature in Loch Ness is real. It's not a plesiosaur or a giant eel or any of the things the scientists and cryptozoologists argue about. It's something else. Something older. Something that doesn't fit into any category we have words for. And it's still there. I saw it for the last time in 2019. I'd hired a boat, couldn't afford my own anymore, and went out alone, early morning, before the tourists. I went to the deep water, cut the engine, and waited. It came. The water began to move. That same impossible bulge I'd seen 52 years earlier. It circled the boat slowly, deliberately. And then, for just a moment, I saw something beneath the surface. Not a shape. Not a body. Just a darkness that was somehow alive. It knew me. After all those years, it remembered. I started to cry. I'm not ashamed to say it. I cried like a child. Because I realized something in that moment. The creature didn't need me to protect it. It never had. It had survived for hundreds, maybe thousands, of years before Thomas, before me, before any of us. It would survive long after we were gone. We weren't protecting it. It was allowing us to believe we were. And that's the secret, you see. That's the thing the government doesn't want anyone to know. Not because the creature is dangerous, but because it's proof. Proof that there are things in this world that are beyond our control, beyond our understanding, beyond our right to study or capture or exploit. And that terrifies them. So here's what I'm asking you to do. Share this recording. Not because you believe me, I don't need you to believe me. But because the truth matters. Because Thomas mattered. Because after everything we sacrificed, everything we gave up, someone needs to know that we existed. That we tried. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Leave a comment. Tell me if you think I'm a liar or a madman or just another old man spinning tales. I don't care. I'll be dead before I read them anyway. But most importantly, if you're ever at Loch Ness, if you're ever standing on that shore looking out at the water, remember this, you're not alone. You're never alone. And some secrets are worth keeping. I'm tired now. The morphine is kicking in. The nurse will be here soon to check on me. Thomas, if you're out there somewhere, if there's anything after this, I hope I kept my promise long enough. I hope I did right by you. And to the creature in the water, if you can somehow hear this. Thank you. Thank you for letting us believe we mattered.